Obviously, I'm a Yankees fan, so I'd love to see him.
It's almost like legacy of like the NFL versus.
But I definitely think that Baker could be a really good player for the Panthers moving forward.
Did I say Oreos?
There's a lot of questions I have about Mahomes. Looks like a kid playing Madden.
Turning point in the game is the 13-second drive.
They play very hard, even though they're terrible.
He's a good pick. For sure. He's going to be a good player. But I can't argue against the Jamar Chase pick.
They made moves saying we're going to win this year, at least get into the playoffs.
I'm going with my guy, Corey Seager. So glad.
What's good, y'all? My name is Austin Jarman, and I play rugby for the University of Notre Dame. And you're listening to The Outsider's Opinion with Austin and Kevin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. We are back and talking about the NFL and just reviewing that was the only game that really mattered. I know the Chiefs game mattered, but the Chiefs weren't playing their starters, so I know it had implications, but this one, the Vikings and Lions game, really mattered, and two divisional foes for my co-host, Austin.
Yeah. It's probably the best, or I think it is the best win percentage from a division ever. I think that was confirmed last week because this was all divisional game week. The Vikings, they played really tough last night. I definitely think they were the better team throughout the first half, even though they were losing. And it was just one play that they could have scored on or made a pick or whatever. But this is not about that. It's not about the game. It's more about how are they a 5 seed? And you got to think, Kevin, this not only hurts the Vikings, it hurts the Lions. Think about it. If the Vikings end up beating the Rams and then the 6 seed and 7 seed both lose, being the Packers and Commanders, the Lions will have to play the Vikings again. That's bad for the Vikings. The Vikings being seated this lowly hurts both the Lions and the Vikings. It hurts all their future opponents, and obviously, yes, you want to be the 1 seed still because you're going to have home field advantage. But I mean, that is a juggernaut matchup in the divisional round that is very, very real.
Yeah, I know it's really weird. A 14-win team is the 5th seed, and that's just because of what the Lions. I don't think we've really seen this because there have been good teams, but it's just not. They could.
I remember 12 back when there was 16 win whatever. I remember there was like 12 win teams. There's been good teams be wild card teams. I do think the NFL should consider it because we've been talking about. I do think that a divisional team, all divisional winners should make it, but I don't think they should be seeded top 4 seeds. I don't think it's fair. We've been talking about how bad the NFC South is for the last 3, 4, 5, not 5 years. The last 4 years, last 3 years. How bad the NFC South is, and it keeps coming down to where a team that's significantly worse than some of the wildcard teams ends up making the playoffs. And I'm fine with them making the playoffs, but they get a home playoff game. That's what I don't like. So I definitely would like to see it be changed to where there's 3 wild cards, but they can be put anywhere. They can be put anywhere in the seeding. The 4 division winners make it no matter what. But if the division winners are 1 and then 5, 6, 7, that's fine. That's fine with me because they deserve to be seeded accordingly with how good they are. I mean, you're going to play your division more than anyone. So when you have a bad record in the division's already bad, that only shows worse to your division and the team that makes it out.
I wouldn't be opposed to something like that because I do agree with you. To me, the division matters. I know there are really bad divisions, but to me, there's still something about no matter what, you just find a way to get in, and because if you're gonna get rid of division winners, this isn't what you're saying, but I'm just saying in general, then you kind of got to rework the entire schedule because what's the point of playing your division opponent twice if it's just going to help you stack up wins if they're bad, but if they're really good, it hurts. So to me, I still like that value of divisions. I wouldn't be opposed if it changes the seeding. But it's really hard to mess with it if they're just not the first four. You could go by record because then I guess they are moving away. So it's just kind of the way it is. My problem with the playoff format is the seventh seed because those haven't the only upset was last year Packers and Cowboys. That was the first time a seventh seed upset the two. And the Packers are really good, so we'll have to see what happens this year against the Eagles. But in the AFC, it just hasn't happened. We've thought, oh, this is going to be close, this is going to be great, but it just really hasn't proven to be a good product. Maybe seeding change that if you just allow four division winners, and like seed them based on their record and tiebreakers. But that is my problem with the format. Is I think there are too many teams in the NFL playoffs.
I can see that, but I definitely would still, if you went back to a 6, I would still think they change the format. I don't think it's fair to the Vikings. The Vikings have beaten a lot of these teams that are in the playoffs. They've had a very, very tough schedule, and I don't necessarily believe that they should be punished for just being in the best division in football history. We had the same conversation about the MLB. It doesn't just hurt the one seed. This reminds me a lot of the 2021 season between the San Francisco Giants and the LA Dodgers. And that was one of the best series I've ever watched. One of the best 5-game series I've ever watched. But that should not have been a 5-game series. That should have been a 7-game series. It's between a team with 107 wins and a team with 105 wins. That should not be a matchup that early. It should not be the NLDS. That should not be when that matchup is. That's stupid to me. That's dumb. And I have the same problem here. It's no different. I could definitely see if they play again the Vikings winning. It's hard to beat a team as good as the Vikings 3 times in the season. That's not a knock on the Lions. It's a fact. I thought the Giants were a better team in 2021. They lost by 1 run in Game 5. And again, everyone still, or I still think about the check swing that I thought was a check swing. Everyone thought was a check swing, and they called him out for strike 3. But that 2021, a lot of people look back at a Giants team, oh, that was a fluke. But that team was seriously good all season, was good in the playoffs, put up a very tough fight. And I don't know if they would have won a World Series, but I would have loved to see if that was a 7-game series, how that would have went. And that's the same way I feel here. The Lions and the Vikings do not deserve to play each other in a divisional round. I wholeheartedly believe that. And the fact that that is bound to happen now, if the Vikings do their job and beat the Rams, it does make me a little sad, because that game should be an NFC Championship game.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I was wondering if I didn't think about it too much, but they could meet in the divisional round. I'm trying to think. The 3 seed would have to be upset by.
No. All that has to, because all that happens is that they reseed in the NFL. Remember, so the 2 and 3 seed have to win, and then the Vikings win, and it's 1, 2, 3, 5. Well, 5 will play 1 automatically. Yeah. So I do think this is a more bad of a mistake in the MLB. Why? Because it's a 5-game series. And so whenever a big matchup like this happens, like if you planted me back in 2021 and that was a 7-game series, I think the Giants could have came back and won that series. I truly believe that. But the fact that it wasn't, we'll never know. But obviously the game's going to be the same length no matter what, and you're going to have to go through the teams you're going to have to go through. But I right now, as it stands, if the Vikings win against the Rams, I do believe the Vikings will beat the Lions. And the reason why is because we've seen a lot of problems with the CFP having a bye. Obviously, it's not helpful. MLB having a bye isn't helpful. NFL, it's iffy, but when you're having to play a 14-win team, a team that if it beats the Rams has won 15 games this season, that's a tough. They're now feeling confident. They just won a playoff game. We just were in Detroit. We know we were this close. If we had made a couple plays here and there, the pick, the touchdown that should have been to Jefferson, we're there. And that is a scary sight to have to go into. Now, the Detroit's definitely good enough to beat the Vikings in that game and end up winning the Super Bowl this year. But I truly believe it is a disadvantage to both teams to have to go through this route of the playoffs. One that the NFL tries to make it easier on you if you're a higher seed, and yes, you get home field advantage, but I think matchups is more important than home field advantage.
Yeah, another team that I was thinking of. This is just terrible for the Rams because, and the team like facing you're facing a 14-win team, and I am curious to see how the Rams play, but I'm like, this is awful for the Rams because they technically are the higher seed, but they're not the favorite because they're facing a 14-win team no matter what. Going into this, now we know it's the Vikings, so which does give a rematch of the Rams beat the Vikings, but there was that
Yes,
controversial
well,
with the face
it was
mask. Yeah,
it shouldn't be a controversy. The only thing they called it completely wrong. I mean, he literally sacks him with both all 5 fingers in the face mask and yanking him down. His entire head turns over. But there's no guarantee that he goes up and scores on that drive. But that should have been a 15-yard penalty and giving them a chance. It's hard to beat the Vikings. It is, and I feel bad for the Rams as well. If it was seeded the way I would seed, it would go Lions and then Vikings, and then it would go Eagles, and then it would go Commanders, correct? I'd go Commanders, and then Packers, and then the last 2 teams in right now would be the Rams and the Bucks. The Bucks would be above the Rams. So right now, the Rams would play the Vikings. And that would be what it would turn out to be because they're the worst team in the playoffs currently. The only difference is it'd be in Minnesota. So this is actually better for the Rams. In most circumstances, where the 2 lower wildcard teams aren't as good as the Commanders and Packers are, yes, I agree with you that this is detrimental to that team. But in this case, it's not. It's where it actually does help the Rams because they're playing the Vikings at home instead of on the road.
yeah. So I think I don't dislike IURD, and I like that if they were going to change something. But I also kind of like the way it is because, yes, there are always bad divisions, but to me, this is kind of an outlier of a season. You have 14.
I disagree. I think this happens too often for it to be like it is. You know, think about it. All 3 wildcard teams are better than the 3rd and 4th teams in the one of the division, the Bucks and the Rams. And you don't have to go that far back, 2020, when the Commanders, or I guess I was watching a football team then, were below 500 to make the playoffs. Again, I believe that they should make the playoffs, but I don't think they should be the 4 seed and have a home field advantage against Tom Brady in that game, right? So there's been a lot of times where the 4 seed is the worst team in the playoffs. Or the worst team in that side of the playoffs. I know that happened this year. I know that happened. I believe it happened last year. It's happened consistent enough for me to believe that this is not how it should be played out. This is not how it should be. And that the teams that are seated below where they should be is disingenuous and does not correctly reward a team for playing extremely well. Think about it. The way it's set up, a 16-1 team could be a 2 seed. Or not a 2 seed, a 5 seed. They could each beat each other, and then they win all their games, besides playing each other, and both teams lose once, right? And it's a 16-1 team as the 5 seed. And now that's not much worse than a 14-3 team, so it's not that even hypothetical. But I do believe that this is a mistake and that the league should fix it. Whether or not they will, I don't think they will. But I definitely believe that they should fix it.
Yeah, this isn't on my number 1 list. My list is lower it again because it's not really adding anything. Because the 7 seed is like, well, you have more people can get in. It's going to be a better week. But this week, the only really important game was the Vikings Lions. All the other games, it was just like all these teams are in. Guys were resting a lot of guys because there's only 1 bye. So that would be my number 1 thing. But I understand the reasoning for this. But that is all I have. I'll let you close this one out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please let us know how you feel about the seeding. Do you think it should change? Do you like Kevin's idea more? That they should just decrease the playoff teams in each conference? Or do you have a different idea? Thank you again.